So a while back we did this more classes. You have it, the class person. Didn't I put this in Blackboard? Maybe I didn't. So let's see, documents. Wait a minute, C workspace. Let's go more classes, right? All right, so if you go to the, oops. There's in the X drive, if you open the X drive, you'll see it. That's the person, the more classes project with the person class we did. Oh, okay. No, you can down. I put it in the shared drive. Anyways. So we had this class called person. And we had its name and a date of birth as a string. Those are the fields that we thought will make a person. I mean, you can get crazy, right, and put a bunch of fields. So what if, well, did I tell you how the date of birth is stored? I did, because that's one of your projects, right? The date time in the computer is stored as a long, which is number of seconds, right? From January 1st, 1900 until now. That will be today. So if you go to you buy an airline ticket, let's say, and you buy a ticket and they ask you the date of birth of the passenger, they can figure out your age, right? And if you're a minor, they're going to ask you, is there an adult going with you? And they figure out your age. How do they do that? Well, what if we do a field called age? Well, yeah, it'll work today, right? But what if the birthday is tomorrow? And then let's say you have a database of a million people. Do you go update their age every day? So the age is a calculated field, right? It shouldn't be stored, it should be calculated based on your date of birth. So yeah, you should have an accessor or getter called getAge, but the return shouldn't be a field called age. Should be a calculation, right? Because if you store it as a field, the calculated field, you actually store it. You don't calculate, you store it. And tomorrow's is this person's birthday. What happens to your age? It's incorrect, right? So we use a term, we say the field has become stale, or the data has become stale. So that's the term you're gonna use whenever you store a calculated field. So it's best if you don't. Yeah, you don't. Because your data may become stale. Unless you go update the date of birth every day. Or the age every day, you know. Alright. So let's comment this out. And I'm gonna just return 0 for now, and you should return calculate the age based on date of birth. Let's bring me another thing. So notice we have constructors, right, that has a parameter, and we call them all value, right? Well, what if I had another one? Oops, sorry. I call it set name and date of birth. And they're both strings. Do I call it value 1, value 2? So how do I know value 1 is the name and value 2 is the date of birth? What if I have 10 parameters? Well, you should have your parameters more descriptive than just value. Alright? So I should call this name, and I should call this date of birth. Now it's more descriptive, right? When you look at it. So, what would you write here? What do you think I should write inside the mutator there? Come on, tell me. So, do I write name equal name? Do I write date of birth equal date of birth? I got a yellow warning there if I hover my mouse. The assignment to the variable name has no effect. That means you are assigning the variable to itself, right? But wait, I have a name here and a date of birth. And notice they're in blue. But here, I have a parameter called name and a parameter called date of birth, but they're in brown. I want the blue equal the brown. How do I do that? No, I'm sorry, what? So this variable name, the one on the left side of the equal sign, is brown, right? Is it referring to the parameter name or to the field name? Right. But I want the parameter, I don't want the parameter, I want the field in this class. So in other words, I need to resolve ambiguity, right? I have a parameter and a field with the same name. Just by itself, the computer is gonna think you're referring to the parameter because it's the last one to be created. If you look at the stack, the last one being created is the name because it's only created when it's called. So it'll be on the top, and because this stack is first in, last out, so it's gonna look at the closest or the latest being created. So to resolve ambiguity, anything that's inside this class, whether it's a field or a method, but I want the method inside this class, I can use this keyword called this. And notice when I do this dot, anything that's inside this class shows up. And notice that now this is brown, this is brown, this is blue. So now when you use the keyword this, is going to refer to the current instance. It's basically this class or this instance, actually. That's what it means. So it's going to refer to the instance class. And the IDE helps us with colors, so you make, or trying to help you so you don't mistakenly assign to the wrong. So, questions there?
I did the same thing, but I typed the word person. It gave me a red squiggly line, but like it still turned my name green.
You instead of this, you use person?
Yeah.
So what does the person, what if I do math that? Oh, it shows a bunch of methods, right? But you notice they all have that red S. What does that mean? No. I can do square root of something here. I can say square root of 5. That works fine. There's no error. So why, when I do a class that, what does the S means? It doesn't mean error. What does the S means? If I use person, only stuff with the red S shows up. But if I type the word this, so what did we say the S meant? Let's look at the casino class. the die class. So if I do die dot, they all have S's, right? We're gonna have this. Not all of them have S's. So what the S meant again? Exactly. And static. How many copies of the method we have in a static? Just one. And the word this means this instance could be this person, that. Not, I mean, you could have a million persons, you know? All right. So, now you know how to use the word this. And this is important because you're gonna learn, or we're gonna learn about inheritance. So if I type the word this, I don't have a method called get class. I don't have a method called get string or equals. Notice those methods are in this class object, right? And some of them person, some of them object. And that's because every person is an object, right? So we say this class person depends on the textbook you use. Some say it's derived from the object. Some others say inherited from the object. We're gonna talk about inheritance, and it's not what you're gonna get, someday in the future. So we don't write anything here. We just type person and then we put a curly bracket after, right? But the person is an object. So Java does this for us when it compiles. So Java uses the keyword extend or extends, saying this person is derived or inherited from the class object. So we don't write this, but it's there. So the keyword this is gonna be used in this class, which means person. And we'll learn about something called superclasses and stuff that refers to the parent class. So if we create a class student that is derived from the class person, every student is a person, but not every person is a student, but both are objects. All right, questions there? So the syntax is correct here. But it's not a good practice the way we did it. And this is not mentioned in the book. This is actually real life stuff. So I have a field called name. I could have a field called, I don't know, salary. And the salary shouldn't have negative numbers, right? So if I make a double field called, like net worth, right? Should it be negatives? Well, so I guess that person owes a lot of money. Like me, I have a lot of money invested in debt. I should invest it in something else. But, so we say here in the net worth, if the value is greater than 0, right, we accept it. So what if instead of saying name and date of birth and net worth, we add the double So Will this method accept negative numbers? Yes, right? Because there's no checks. So if I have this, well, if they use this one, then it'll check. Well, they probably can get around if they call this one, right? So basically you gave a backdoor entrance here, which you shouldn't allow. So what shall we do instead? Any ideas? Add if statements there? What if you have 100? Oh, you want to take it out, so allowed errors?
That's gonna cause an error with the distance.
No, if you want to take it out, then people will have negative net worth. It shouldn't be allowed.
Oh, yeah.
So what shall you do? How will you prevent? So the idea is, if you have a mutator, it should only be one point where you change the field, where you control it. But in this case, we have two, right? How do we fix that? Do I copy paste the if statements? What if I have 100 lines? I'm not gonna copy 100 lines. So what do you do? And this what?
This network, like somehow put parameters on that. I want to say with the if statement, but we have that would cause it to create a lot of if statements.
Yeah, you don't want that, right?
Like create a loop.
Create a loop for what?
A lot of
So when we did, not this one, when we did the files just a minute ago, we have two versions, right, of write text file. What this one did, it's just called the other one, right? So can I just do this? Think that's allowed? So if I call this method is gonna call my other mutators, and then it's gonna call the set network, and then the if statements there. So the book doesn't say that, but it is best if you change your fields only at one spot. Questions? All right. So let's close this and let's go to our financials. So what we did here. these were the first probably one of the first projects we did. It's alright. Let's make another class here. I'm gonna call it main class. And then I'm gonna copy this main to there. Is this in Blackboard or do I need to give it to you? I'm just gonna give it to you just in case. Alright, there it's in the X drive, so you can have it now. So this class has a loan number. Obviously this one was one of the first because we don't have a constructor in our loan class. Let's make a constructor. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure how to open your share code.
Alright. So let's see if we can do it from here. Copy it into your local drive first, or flash drive. Then close all the projects you have open in Eclipse.
What am I copying into my local disk?
Whatever your workspace is. Mine says Eclipse x64 workspace. And then you will right click where in the left pane and click import. And this shows up. This import wizard, and select general and select existing projects into workspace, and you will do the same thing if you were to download this from Blackboard. And then next, and then you will browse it. And then put a checkbox there. Select all if you want. It's fine. And let me click on search nested, I guess. It won't let me because I already have it. It says some projects cannot be imported because they already exist in your workspace. Well, you shouldn't get that. You should be able to select financials and then click finish. What now?
So I don't see the file.
Wherever you copied it to.
Where do we copy it from?
You copy from the X drive.
I don't see it.
You see this thought space if you click?
Yeah, I see it, but I don't see it in financials in there.
It's right there, it's a folder.
Yeah, where I have Ibrahim and Rosenbach. Only 2 folders.
Oh. All right. Well, so what we'll do then, let me zip it real quick. And I'm gonna put it in Blackboard real quick. Alright, you can download it now from Blackboard. Of course you have to extract it because it's in a zip format.
You want to put the home or the main class?
No, extract them all. And then it'll look like this, and then you have to actually open each class individually. You got it now?
Yeah.
Alright. So, next thing we're gonna do in our loan, we're gonna set our loan number. So it's gonna be easy. So I'm gonna say public loan. That's my constructor, right? And the loan number is simply whatever my seed is plus the count. And then I can increment the count here. What if I'm lazy and I don't want to increment the here? What if I want to increment it here? Can I do that? It doesn't give me an error. Let's see if it works. I mean, we can do an access or get loan number. That will work. So what will be the first loan if I do one here? Let's do this. Let's make here a loan, my car loan. I'll say my car loan equals new loan. And I'll say system.out.println my car loan dot get loan number, right? And then I'm just gonna end the program here. So I made my constructor as a loan number equals the seed, which is a start at 1,000 and increment the count. So this is a postscript basically. It's after the word count, so it's post. So if I do this, the first loan number will be 1,000. Let me show you something else before I get into enumerators. I can do it before. What does that do? That's kind of weird. Plus, 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 count. So if I run this, before I had 1,000. If I run this, start with 1,001. But when I have not as a prescript, I had as a postscript, I start with 1,000. So this is how it works. This plus plus thing. Also, that's the increment, right? Or the decrement if you were minus minus. If I have it after, which means at the right side of the variable, this whole expression, whatever is here, it could be a very long expression, whatever is there is going to be executed first. And after I'm done with that, I'm going to do my increment. Okay? But if I do it here, the first thing it's going to do is do the increment, and then it's going to do the whole expression. So it's a pretext. A prescript. Clear? Every show has that word clear, right? If it's police or if it's medical, whatever, they will say clear. Have you seen that video? This lady doesn't move when they're gonna shock this patient, and she just passes out, gets shocked. She's in the ambulance and touched the patient and was gonna be shocked. That's a lot of voltage going on. Darwin Award. Alright. So, I was just trying to show you the prefix and postfix of the increment. So, there's a lot of type of loans, right? I mean, if I go to a bank, if I want to do a home loan, they have FHA, they have conventional, they have these 30 years, 15 years, adjustable APR. There's a lot of types. And then you got car loans, personal loans, credit card loans. So I can do something like this. I can say public. Oh, I want to add another one here. I want to say and I want to say loan type. All right. And I can say, well, we're going to make some constants. I can say car loan. It will be the default one. And then you can do another one. And you don't have to write it because I'm going to erase it anyway. Anyways, home FHA will be type 1 and home conventional 30 years, whatever. And I start adding a bunch of statics. So I can use that from my main class. You get the point, right? Well, what if I have like 20 of those? And then I accidentally do this. You mean the FHA and the conventional 30 years is the same type of loans? Well, actually it's not. The rules are different. Well, what happens is, if you get this integer field that you want to control the input, oh yeah, you can set an if statement, like we did the net worth, that you can only allow certain numbers and so on. So, what happens, for instance, when you go to a website and then the page cannot be found? You get an error. What's that error? 404, right? So there's 403 errors before that, right? So what if the website crashes? Oh, that's error 500. Oh, that means there's 499 error codes before. You really think you're gonna know all the error codes? That will be a pain to write all these constants. all the different type of errors, right? Oh my goodness, it'd be like printing a phone book, just error codes. So instead of doing that, it would be nice if we can name them and let the computer numbers them. Like it start from 0, because all the numbers are at 0 in the computer. We start at 0 and then increments 1 and makes them like these constants, these finals. So there is a way to do that, and it's called enumerator. So it just says enumerate from 0 to whatever. An enumerator is a class. So like a class is also an array. We're going to talk about arrays after the midterm. Oops, sorry. Lowercase. And I don't remember if you used the word static. I don't think so, but it's called enumerator or enum. What this enumerator does is you declare a type. I'm gonna call it lone type. And then I'm gonna use curly brackets, and I'm gonna type my constants, but I only need to put the constants names. I don't have to put any values or any types or nothing. All I do is, car loan, conventional, 30 years, FHA, 30, conventional, I'm just gonna put conventional, that's 15, FHA, 15, I just symbol 5, or whatever. And I'm done, I put my semicolon. So I use capital letters because they're the same as constants. But now, car loan is 0, conventional is 30, FHA 30 is 1. Conventional 30 is 1, FHA 30 is 2, conventional 15 is 3, this is 4, and this is 5, and I keep going. So I could write an enumerator for error codes, and I can just type whatever constants I want, and just happens that 404 end up to be page not found. So basically you created another type. Classes are types. You can use them as types, right? So now I can use this private, and I can use this as a type, lone type. I'm just gonna call it type.
You said an enumerator declares a class.
Enumerator lone type is a class now. It's basically a class of constants, and they're just start at 0, however I have, increments by 1. So if I say FHA 30 is actually number 2, right? In the positions, position 0, position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So notice something here. In my default constructor, I'm gonna say the type is gonna be, okay, so do I say type 0? No, that gives me an error. Although every field is binary 0, but type is really not a number, it's an enumerator. So type, can I do this? Nope, because Carlone is not a constant here. It's a constant in this other class called loan type. So what do I do? If I do loan type, and if I press dot, remember, if I just name the class, I get the static field. And look at that. Anything that's static. And you notice the AMR, Carlone, and all those have the SF. S means static, F means final. So basically they're constants. So the default is a Carlone. For instance, I can do math.pi, it's a double, constant there. I'm not assigning it to anything, but it works the same way. So I can make another constructor that takes loan type, and call it type, and I can say, hey, I want this. Well, I should have a mutator, right? So I should have public void set loan type should do it like this. And then if I say type equals type, oh, that's not gonna work, right? I have to use the keyword this, right? And so if I have a constructor that has this parameter loan type, I should simply call that mutator, so we don't have more than one spot where we change the value, right? And we should have an accessor too. Oops, I'm sorry, it's not a void, it's a loan type. Coffee hasn't kicked in yet. There. So I added let's do this. I added this enumerator. I created a field of that type of the enumerator. I added a construct. I added an appropriate mutator and accessors, which are these two. And then I added a constructor that takes a loan type. Pick it up. All right. So when I run the program here, I had that, and I can say my car loan dot set loan type, and what can I say? One? No, I can't, right? 1, 2. can I say loan type that I'm gonna be a conventional? There we go. Oh wait, why do I get that error? Is loan type enumerator inside the main class? No, it's inside the loan, right? So I have to do this. Or, I don't know if this is gonna work, but let's try. Or I can do it like this too. I can do import loan. Maybe loan that star. Nope. Never mind. Had to be like this. Had to do the full qualified reference. Meaning put the whole path in there. So if I do my car loan dot get loan type. So if I run this, let's see what happens. Error. Where is the error? Oh, there's no error. So it said my conventional 15 and my loan number is number 1001. So I probably had it as prefix. Yeah, I had it as prefix. Well, let's put it as postfix. How's that? That's what I had before. So if I run this, right? But what if I want to know the number? Well, conventional 15 is actually 0, 1, 2, 3, right? I wanted to print out number 3. So what do I do? So I could do this. I can do loan type, current type, let's say. That's basically just a variable of type loan type. I can do current type equal that, and basically nothing has changed there. I just simply add a variable to hold the current type. Notice, and this is what I did it, because notice if it's a enumerator, I have to use the word that had to indicate what class that enumerator is at. So I use loan type. You get the same results? Alright, so let me show you something. I can do dot, and because loan type is actually a class, there is this method called ordinal. So now instead of being conventional 15, it's gonna do conventional, 1000 and then conventional, and then 3. Yeah. So it print out number 3 because I said give me the ordinal. The ordinal means give me the order where that number is. Pretty easy, huh? And there's another one that's called name, which is the same as the toString. So if I do name, print out the string version of this. The beauty about this enumerator, it also works with switch statements. So you can use a switch, and you don't all you have to do is a bunch of cases. You don't have to worry about doing a lot of if statements. Another thing that I can do with this is, so I set the loan type to be 15. There's a way to convert the number into this, like the number 3 into this, but I think I'm gonna wait to tell you that when we talk about arrays. Yeah, we'll wait until I show you arrays. We'll revisit that. So I can put some text here. Loan number plus loan type plus just a little text. Doesn't make a difference, right? And actually, I don't even need this variable. The only reason I did it like that is to show you how to declare it. But you could do it like this. It works the same way. So my car loan is still variable, and then he calls this method called getLoanType, returns the type, and then converts it to the name. And it's a string. I can keep going dot, and then use the methods from a string and so on. So far so good? There's one more thing I have to show you. Do you understand the enumerators, how to use them? I'm not gonna give you homework today because you have an exam next week.
I'll just do next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the exam going to be like in class?
Yep.
Yeah. Is it going to be like the quizzes we take?
Yeah, it'll be only half of the class, so we're gonna lecture at the beginning. Or maybe we should do it first and then, I don't know, I'll think about it. Anyways, so we created two constructors, right? One that takes the loan, and another one, one that's the default constructor that doesn't take any parameters, and another one that takes the loan type as a parameter. So in other words, I could do this. I can comment this out, and I can just do it. Copy and paste it here. And the result should be the same, right? I mean, there's a constructor that takes a loan type, which is here. And look what happens. Look at my loan number. It should be 1,000, right? So what do you think happened there? So remember when we said what binding does? It's going to bind to the method that matches the signature. So there's a constructor called loan, a constructor that takes a loan type. So it's going to come here. And that method, when it gets here, it's going to set the loan type. And then it's going to return here. And it's going to return back here. Well, but the loan number is set up here, right? I don't need to erase. Let me erase that. Oh, that's fine. We can leave it there. So how do I set the loan number to? Do I copy paste the code there for the loan number? I guess I could do this. Right? And that'll work. But what did I said about changing the fields in more than one spot? It's a very bad practice. It's gonna screw you up. So I want, when I get in here, I want to call this loan, this constructor, from this constructor. So basically, like we did in the person, oh, I closed that. Where was it? More classes, right? So when we call the person, and we set this one, we simply call the other mutators, right? We want to do the same thing here. Well, you could say I can make a method to do this and then call them each one. Yeah, you could do that. Sometimes you have to do that. But what if I just want to call the other constructor? How do I do that? So by looking at this code, I have two constructors. One is the default constructor that takes no parameters, and the one that takes the one parameter. And the one I'm calling is the one that takes one parameter. Should I set the loan type and then call the default constructor? Or should I call the default constructor first and set the loan type later? What do you think? So I'm setting up the loan type to be a conventional 15. So I call this loan type here, and I set up the loan. Should I call this default constructor before or after I set up the loan type? What do you think? What happens if I call it after? The set loan type is gonna set it up to 15, right? And then if I call this one, guess what happens to the loan type? It gets erased, right? We don't want that. So we're gonna call the default constructor first. Actually, Java will not let you call the default constructor after. And how do I call this constructor? Can I just do loan? It's a method. No, loan is a class, right? I want to call the instance of this, the constructor of this instance. And what keyword do I use? Look at that, it looks weird. But this, with no parameters, is calling that constructor. Look at this. This has no parameters. So this is this instance, right? And so this basically is just calling the default constructor there. So look, instead of being 0 now, it works. Java will not let me do this. Because the first executable line in inside a constructor If you're calling another constructor, it has to be the first line. That's a rule. So let me put a breakpoint here and let's run this. So I'm gonna call my car loan. And I'm gonna step into this. And it says, oh, public static seed, okay. It's 1,000, I need that. Count is 100, count is 0. And now I go call the loan. I'm in the constructor that takes one parameter. The type is, name is conventional 15 and the number is 3, and if you span this, there's other stuff. So I have the keyword this, and it's calling a constructor. See, there's no name after, there's no dot, it's just the parenthesis. That means it's calling a constructor. And I step into this, and it goes to the other constructor, see? Right now my type is nothing, right? It's null. The loan is 0 because everything is set up to binary 0. So the loan now has 100. My count now is 1. And then the type, next thing, is gonna be set to car loan because that's my default. And I exit, go back to where I was called, and now I'm gonna set the loan type. So basically the loan type got set up twice. And now see, now I am in loan.set loan type line 23, which is here. And type right now is 0, it's car loan. And then it's gonna be set to conventional 15. And then when I exit here, it's gonna go back to line 19 of the constructor, and that's just closing bracket here, so it's gonna go back to the main line 10, and it's here now. So my car loan, there it is. Loan number and the type is conventional 15. So couple things you gotta know, and we end with this. Constructors can call other constructors, right? It has to be the first one. Here I could have set, instead of changing the value, I should have done this, set loan type. I should have done this, right? It works the same way. But you shouldn't do this. So what happens if this constructor wants to call another constructor? It can. But it can call this one. Why? Because then this one is calling this, and this is calling this, and this is calling this, and right? There's a loop references. So if I hover my mouse, it'll tell you. Recursive constructor invocation. So basically, they keep calling each other until they run out of memory and crash the computer. So early versions or some IDEs, they wouldn't know that. It will let you compile it, and then the whole computer bugs down, and then hopefully it's not the first day you go in production and you have about 200 users, and then you had to fix it and everybody's down until you fix it, and then you're like, why didn't I just become a lawyer or something? Something else. All right, so what do you think? Questions? Think you're ready?